Under the blazing afternoon sun, a woman in a sharp blue suit suddenly collapsed on a busy city sidewalk, gasping for air as dozens of onlookers froze in shock, none daring to step forward. But one man, with grease-stained hands and a simple paper lunch bag, broke through the crowd without a second thought. What happened next would not only save her life, but set in motion a chain of events that neither of them could have ever imagined. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where you are watching from. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Now, let's jump into the story. The midday sun pressed down on the city, turning the sidewalks into sheets of shimmering heat. Cars crawled through traffic, horns blaring now and then, while people hurried from one shaded spot to another. Near the corner of Elm and Park Street, a cluster of tall buildings cast narrow strips of shadow across the pavement. It was in one of these thin slices of shade that something unusual caught the attention of passers-by. A woman in a pale blue business suit stumbled, her heels clicking awkwardly against the concrete before she dropped to her knees. She clutched her chest, her breathing ragged and sharp. Her designer bag slid from her shoulder, spilling papers and a sleek phone onto the ground. For a moment, the busy street seemed to freeze. A man in a gray tie stopped mid-stride, glancing around as if waiting for someone else to step forward. Two teenagers, standing near a bus stop, lifted their phones to record the scene. Others turned to watch, but kept their distance, unsure what was happening or what they should do. The woman gasped again, her hands trembling as she tried to draw in air. The light changed from green to red, and cars came to a stop, drivers craning their necks to see the commotion. Someone shouted for help, but the sound seemed to vanish in the heavy summer air. Across the street, Liam Carter had just locked the door of his small delivery van. He had a used bicycle in the back, freshly repaired for a customer, and a brown paper bag holding his lunch. His shirt was faded from years of sun and washing, and his hands carried the faint smell of chain grease no matter how often he scrubbed them. He was on his way to make the drop-off before taking his lunch break in the park. He noticed the stillness in the crowd first, then the sight of the woman collapsing to the ground. His mind seemed to click into another mode, faster and sharper than his daily thoughts. The bag in his hand hit the pavement, forgotten. Without hesitating, he crossed the street, weaving between the stopped cars, as a driver leaned out the window and asked what was going on. When he reached her, she was lying on her side, her breaths shallow and uneven. Her skin had taken on a pale, almost gray tone that told him this was serious. Fragments of training from years ago flashed in his mind, not from his work as a bicycle mechanic, but from a single year of studying health sciences before life pulled him in another direction. Liam knelt beside her, his knees pressing against the warm pavement. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. She did not answer. Quickly, he checked her pulse, weak and irregular. Her breathing faltered again. He rolled her onto her back, placed the heel of one hand in the center of her chest, and set the other hand on top. Then he began compressions, counting in his head, keeping a steady 1, 2, 3, 4. Each push sent a small shock through his arms, but he held his focus. Around him, the crowd edged closer, but still kept a respectful circle. The recording phones followed his movements, their lenses catching the sweat on his brow and the determination in his expression. Someone called out that the ambulance was on its way. Liam kept going. He had no room in his thoughts for cameras or questions, only the beat of his hands pressing life back into her. 30 compressions. A quick check of her airway. Then back to compressions. Seconds stretched into what felt like minutes, but he didn't let up. His breath came heavier, and the heat pressed in, but he stayed steady. Then, on a count that might have been 90 or 100, the woman coughed. A thin sound at first, then another, stronger. Her chest rose with a deeper breath. Liam paused just long enough to see her eyelids flutter. Relief moved through him, but he kept his hands ready until the paramedics reached them. Bright red lights reflected off the glass storefronts as the ambulance pulled up. 2 medics rushed over, taking over with smooth, practiced movements. Liam stepped back, his hands tingling from the effort. One medic glanced at him, gave a short nod, and said, "Good job, you kept her going." As they lifted the woman onto a stretcher, her eyes opened briefly. She looked around the street, then fixed her gaze on the nearest medic. Her voice was hoarse, but clear enough to surprise everyone nearby. "Call my lawyer," she said. "Now." The crowd exchanged puzzled looks. Liam didn't react. He picked up his paper bag from where it had fallen, brushed off the dirt, and stepped away as the ambulance doors closed. The siren wailed, and the vehicle moved off into traffic, leaving behind the echo of a moment that would soon matter more than anyone there could guess. Liam Carter's life was built on routine. He lived with his 10-year-old son Jack in a modest 2-bedroom apartment above a corner bakery. The rent was affordable, though the scent of fresh bread every morning was a temptation neither of them could resist. Each day began early. Liam would wake before the sun, quietly preparing breakfast while Jack still slept. Toast, scrambled eggs, and sometimes pancakes if there was enough time. He packed 2 lunches, one for Jack, one for himself, using whatever leftovers they had from the night before. Every penny was counted, every meal planned to make their grocery budget stretch through the week. By 7:15, they would leave the apartment together. Jack, with his worn backpack, would chatter about school projects and soccer practice. Liam would listen, nodding and smiling, even as his mind drifted to the list of repair orders waiting for him at the bike shop. He dropped Jack at school by 7:30 sharp, then drove to Carter Cycles, a small, family-owned repair shop where he had worked for almost a decade. The shop was his second home. The walls were lined with tires, handlebars, and shiny new chains. Tools hung neatly above the workbench, each one worn from years of use. Liam's hands were always busy, tightening brakes, fixing flat tires, or adjusting gears. He had a reputation for being thorough and honest. Customers trusted him, not just with their bicycles, but with their stories. What most people didn't know was that Liam's life had once been on a very different path. In his early 20s, he had enrolled in a health sciences program at a nearby college. His dream was to become a physiotherapist, helping people recover from injuries and regain their strength. He excelled in his classes, driven by a fascination with the human body and a desire to make a difference. But life has a way of changing plans without warning. In his second year, Liam met Grace, a bright and spirited teacher's assistant. They fell in love quickly, married within a year, and welcomed Jack soon after. Their small apartment was filled with laughter, late-night talks, and the chaos of raising a baby. Then, tragedy struck. Grace developed a sudden illness that no one saw coming. Despite medical care, her condition worsened rapidly. Within weeks, she was gone, leaving Liam with a 1-year-old son and a heart full of grief. School no longer seemed possible. The tuition bills were impossible to manage, and childcare costs were overwhelming. Liam left his program, took the first steady job he could find, and focused on surviving day by day. The dream of working in healthcare faded into the background, replaced by the immediate needs of keeping a roof over their heads and food on the table. Over the years, Liam adjusted to his new reality. His world became about Jack's happiness and security. He attended every school play, every soccer game, and every parent-teacher conference. He taught Jack how to ride a bike in the parking lot behind their building, jogging alongside him until the training wheels were no longer needed. Still, there were quiet moments when Liam wondered what might have been. Sometimes, late at night, he would come across an old textbook from his college days, pages marked with notes in the margins, and feel a small tug of longing. But those moments never lasted. There was always a bill to pay, a lunch to pack, or a repair to finish. On the day of the incident, Liam was delivering a refurbished bike to a customer downtown. It was a hot afternoon, and he was looking forward to a quick stop at the park for lunch before heading back to the shop. As he turned onto Park Street, he noticed the unusual stillness of a crowd ahead. People stood clustered together, some talking quietly, others holding up phones. Liam's first thought was that it might be a street performance, but the expressions on their faces told a different story. Then he saw her, a woman lying on the sidewalk, motionless, her pale blue suit bright against the dull concrete. The scene felt strangely distant for a heartbeat, like watching a film. But training, even old training, has a way of resurfacing when it's needed most. Liam's mind sharpened. He forgot about the heat, the delivery, the lunch waiting in the van. Instinct and memory guided his steps toward her. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know that the moment he knelt beside her would change the course of his life. All he knew was that someone needed help, and he had the ability to give it. By the time the paramedics arrived, the woman was breathing again. Her first words, asking for her lawyer, struck him as unusual, but he didn't think much about it. He had done what he could, and now it was in their hands. As he walked back to his van, sweat soaking his shirt, Liam felt the familiar pull of his old ambitions. He pushed it aside, the way he had for years. Yet somewhere deep down, a spark had been lit, one that would soon grow into something far bigger than he could imagine. Claire Harper woke in the quiet of a hospital room. The steady beeping of monitors and the soft hum of machines surrounded her. Sunlight filtered in through half-closed blinds, falling across crisp white sheets. She remembered the sharp pain, the shortness of breath, and then the face of a man leaning over her, his voice steady, his hands working to keep her alive. Her doctor, Dr. Ramirez, entered with a gentle smile. "You had a serious cardiac episode," he explained, "but you were lucky. Someone nearby acted quickly, performing CPR until the paramedics arrived. Without him, the outcome would have been very different." "Who was he?" Claire asked, her voice hoarse but determined. "Liam Carter," the doctor replied, "a bicycle mechanic, former health sciences student. He kept your heart going until we could take over." Claire nodded slowly. The name was unfamiliar, but the act was unforgettable. She had met many people in her life, business partners, investors, politicians, but this man had stepped in without knowing her name, her status, or her wealth. Instead of calling family or arranging for business updates, Claire reached for her phone and asked the nurse to contact her attorney. Within an hour, she was speaking with Marion Sutton, a trusted legal advisor who had worked with her for over 20 years. "Marion," Claire said, "I need to meet this man, and when I do, I want to offer him something more meaningful than a simple thank you." Over the next 2 days, Claire's assistant worked quietly to find Liam. The details came back quickly. Widowed father, raising a young son named Jack, living above a bakery in a modest part of town, working long hours to cover expenses. 3 days after leaving the hospital, Claire sat at her writing desk in her countryside estate. She chose a sheet of heavy cream stationery, the kind reserved for personal messages, and began writing a note in her neat, looping script. "Dear Mr. Carter, I would like to thank you in person for what you did. Please join me at my home this Saturday afternoon. Transportation will be arranged for you. It is a matter of personal importance." Liam found the envelope in his mailbox the following morning. The return address was printed elegantly in the corner. Harper Estate. He read the letter twice, his brow furrowed. He remembered the woman in the blue suit, but the idea of visiting her home felt strange. Still, something in the tone of the note told him this wasn't just a courtesy call. On Saturday, a black car pulled up in front of the bakery. Jack watched from their window as Liam locked the apartment door. "You're going to meet the lady you saved?" Jack asked. "Yes," Liam said, adjusting his collar. "I'm not sure why, but she wants to see me." The drive to the estate took nearly an hour. When the car turned onto a long gravel driveway, Liam saw manicured lawns stretching out on either side, dotted with fountains and flower beds. The house rose at the end, all glass, stone, and quiet elegance. A housekeeper greeted him at the door, but Claire herself appeared moments later, walking with steady steps toward him. She extended her hand, her eyes sharp but warm. "Mr. Carter," she said, "thank you for coming. Please, call me Claire." She led him to a private study lined with bookshelves. Sunlight streamed in through tall windows, casting golden light across a polished wooden table. Over tea, Claire asked about his life. Liam spoke plainly about Jack, his work at the bike shop, and his decision years ago to leave school after his wife's passing. He did not dress the story up. He simply told it as it was. Claire listened intently. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair. "You could have walked past me that day," she said. "Many people did. But you didn't. You acted, without hesitation, without knowing who I was or what I could offer you in return. That is rare." Liam shifted uncomfortably. Anyone with basic training would have done the same. "No," Claire replied. "Many have the training, but not the will to use it. You did. And I believe in rewarding that kind of instinct." Then she told him her proposal. She wanted to sponsor his return to school, not just tuition, but living expenses, childcare for Jack, and whatever support he needed to complete his degree and pursue the career he once planned. "This isn't charity," she said. "It's an investment in someone who has already proven his worth." Liam sat in silence, the weight of her words settling in. For years, he had kept his old dreams buried under the demands of daily life. Now, this stranger, a woman he had met by chance, was offering to bring them back within reach. He didn't answer right away. Claire didn't push. "Think about it," she said, standing. "Whatever you decide, you will always have my gratitude." As he left the estate, Liam looked out across the gardens. For the first time in years, he felt the shape of possibility returning to his life. Liam Carter sat at the small kitchen table in his apartment, the letter from Claire Harper lying in front of him. He had read it twice already, but the words still felt unreal. She was offering him the chance to return to school, to finish what he had started years ago, with full support for him and Jack. Jack sat across from him, swinging his legs under the chair. "So, does this mean you'll be a doctor?" he asked, his eyes wide. Liam smiled faintly. "Not a doctor, exactly, but I could finish my degree in health sciences and become a physiotherapist. Remember how I used to help people get stronger after injuries? I could do that again." Jack grinned. "You should do it, Dad. I think you'd be the best at it." Those words stayed with Liam in the days that followed. He thought about the sacrifices he had made, the dreams he had put aside, and the life he had built for Jack. This opportunity felt like a door opening, one he had thought was sealed forever. 2 weeks later, Liam enrolled in an accelerated refresher program at the local university. Classes were scheduled in the evenings and on weekends, so he could still work at the bike shop during the day. Claire's funding covered tuition, books, and after-school activities for Jack, ensuring that his son's life remained stable. The first weeks were challenging. Liam found himself relearning anatomy, physiology, and medical techniques he hadn't studied in over a decade. His nights were filled with textbooks and lecture notes, while his days remained busy with customers needing repairs. There were moments when he wondered if he had taken on too much. But every time doubt crept in, Jack's voice echoed in his mind. You'd be the best at it. Claire visited often, not to oversee his progress, but to share in it. She would bring dinner and join Jack at the table for homework sessions, helping him with science projects and listening to his stories about school. In time, she became a familiar presence in their home, a steady influence who seemed just as invested in Jack's future as she was in Liam's. Months passed, and Liam's confidence grew. He began teaching basic CPR workshops at the community center, using his own story as a reminder of how quick action can save a life. His calm, patient style made him a favorite with students, many of whom had never been in a classroom setting before. Jack would sometimes sit quietly in the back of the room, watching his father demonstrate chest compressions on a training mannequin. Afterwards, he would tell Liam how proud he was, and Liam would feel a quiet warmth in his chest, the kind that only comes from knowing you're on the right path. By the end of his first year, Liam had not only regained his academic footing, but also discovered a renewed sense of purpose. Claire encouraged him to apply for a specialized program in rehabilitation therapy, one that would allow him to combine his skills with his interest in helping people recover from physical setbacks. One afternoon, after a particularly well-received workshop, Claire approached Liam with a small, leather-bound notebook. I've been writing down ideas for projects we can start together, she said. Community health initiatives, free training classes, maybe even scholarships for others who had to pause their education like you did. Liam accepted the notebook, turning its pages filled with neat handwriting. These are good ideas, he said quietly. But you know, Claire, you've already changed more than just my life. The following weekend, the three of them, Liam, Jack, and Claire, packed a picnic and went to the park. They spread a blanket under a wide oak tree, the sound of children playing nearby carrying on the breeze. Jack tossed a ball back and forth with other kids while Liam and Claire talked about the future. There was no discussion of money or status, no mention of the day they had first met on the sidewalk. Instead, the conversation was about simple things: recipes, books, places they wanted to visit. As the sun began to set, they walked home together. Jack walked in the middle, holding each of their hands, talking excitedly about his school's upcoming sports day. Liam listened, smiling, while Claire glanced down at the boy with genuine affection. Liam realized then that something unexpected had grown from that one moment in the heat of the city. Claire had given him the chance to reclaim a dream, but she had also brought a sense of connection he hadn't felt in years. Jack had gained another person in his life who cared deeply about him, and Claire, who had spent decades focused on business and responsibility, had found joy in the small, ordinary moments of a makeshift family. As they turned onto their street, Liam looked at the two people beside him and understood that the real reward wasn't just a second chance at his career. It was the life they were building together. Sometimes, he thought, the most powerful changes come quietly, disguised as acts of kindness. You never know whose life you might touch, or how deeply they might touch yours in return.